Just days to go before the general election in Honduras, the population is optimistic about a possible change of government. Activists across the world mobilized this Thursday to mark the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen opened a virtual meeting of Asian and European leaders on Thursday with a call for sustainable and shared global growth as the world seeks to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. We begin in Honduras, where with just days to go before the general elections, the population is optimistic about a possible change of government. But there is also uncertainty due to the political violence reported. Our correspondent, Gilda Silvestrucci, brings us more details.
The daily lives of Hondurans continue as normal. In the squares, people continue with their daily activities, such as Don Raul Soto, who sells water to earn a living.
Sincerely, to support a family, this is no good. But to be able to make it through the day, because right now I have no obligations, it's just me.
Although he no longer has a family that depends on him, he assures he will vote for a change so that his children can find work.
Because I have daughters, and they are professionals, and in this government there has been nothing. If we continue with this government, we will die of hunger.
5 million Hondurans are registered in the electoral roll, and a massive turnout is expected due to the mood perceived among the population.
I am in the best of spirits, and let's trust in God that we can go out to vote early, go out with all the willingness and with all the civic and patriotic enthusiasm to cast our ballots. We hope for a change in this country. We have seen 12 years of conservative dictatorship, and we can't stand anymore.
Although there have been signs of violence in recent weeks, this does not seem to deter voters, who are confident the process will bring about change.
Of course, there has to be a change. We are optimistic. We cannot continue with corrupt governments.
And yes, there is certain fear, but there is also courage, joy, and people in the streets tell us it is forbidden to be afraid. After 12 years of nationalist government, the electoral process is seen as a historical step, which will depend on the massive turnout at the polls.
The right-wing strategy in Honduras is to destabilize the process, to try to demoralize the population, to demobilize it.
There are 13 candidates for the presidency, but the favorites are Xiomara Castro, who is backed by the 5 political parties, and the ruling party's candidate, Nasri Asfura.
Thank you, Gilda, for this report. And now we continue to other topics. The Russian government has joined other countries in voicing support for Venezuela and denouncing foreign attempts to undermine the results of the recent elections and promote the destabilization of the country. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova emphasized that last Sunday's regional and municipal elections were held in a calm atmosphere and no violations of the electoral law were reported. The Russian official also welcomed the participation of opposition parties in the elections, noting it was a sign of political maturity. She denounced several countries' intention to question the legitimacy of the vote and stressed that only Venezuelan citizens have the right to determine the path of the development of their state, which must be respected by other countries without interference in Venezuela's internal affairs. Opposition lawmakers in Peru presented a motion in Congress on Thursday seeking to remove President Pedro Castillo. The motion, citing moral inability to govern, was presented with the signatories of 28 legislators from the Popular Force Party of defeated far-right presidential candidate Keiko Fujimori and the Popular Renewal and Avanza País parties, and requires at least 52 votes in favor to be admitted for debate in the Congress and at least 86 for Castillo to be impeached. This is the second attempt by conservative sectors in the parliament to remove Castillo from office after a previous attempt failed on lacking the necessary votes. University students and teachers marched in the Ecuadorian capital on Thursday to reject cuts in the next year's budget for higher education. According to plans by the neoliberal government of President Guillermo Lasso, higher education will see a budget drop of about $78 million in 2022 compared to the 2021 budget. That cut prompted Congress to send the overall budget back to the executive before it was approved. But the Federation of University Students of Ecuador calculates that the cuts in the budget for universities will reach $117 million, which will affect the academic offer, infrastructure, payment of teachers, scholarships and financial aid, leaving more than of the country's young people without higher education.
Organizations of the education system have mobilized to demand that the national government deliver a decent budget for education. The Ecuadorian university alone is being reduced by $117 million, which will affect the academic offer, the infrastructure, the payment of teachers, as well as scholarships and financial aid. This mobilization demands that the national government fulfills its campaign promises, that is, to provide better living conditions for health, education, and our students.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. A square dedicated to women victims of domestic violence was inaugurated in the French capital, Paris, as activists stress the debate about femicide and domestic violence, the needs to be present in public spaces. The square was inaugurated by the local town hall as part of activities to mark the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women this Thursday, November 25th. It provides a space for families to remember their loved ones and to campaign for justice, as well as to raise awareness of the issue in the country. Authorities have been resistant to cracking down on gender-based violence. It was only this January that the French Senate approved a law setting an age of consent at 13 years old. In 2019, 146 women were killed by an intimate partner in France, making it one of the most dangerous countries for women in Europe.
Of these squares is very important for the families because it shows them that we do not forget their loved ones who disappeared too soon, and it also tells the women victims of violence that we think about them, and it should be duplicated in many more places. It also means that the debate about the femicide and domestic violence is starting to be in the public place, so to speak, and as long as the public opinion and its immense majority will not have ceased this debate and will oblige the government to change what is currently in place, nothing will change. So this is a step that is indispensable. The second step would be for this place to be duplicated in many other cities in order to make society truly aware of the ravages of domestic violence and femicide. It's really through media coverage and prevention that we will be able to change things.
On Thursday in Rome, the Coliseum and the facade of the Capitoline Hill were lit up with red lights to mark the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, as an initiative to promote awareness of an issue that many suffer in silence. Projected onto the Coliseum walls was a sign reading the names of women killed and red shoes to represent them. More than 100 women have been killed in Italy in 2021, an increase of 8% compared to last year. Of the victims, 63 women were murdered by their partners and 93 by a member of their intimate circle. Turkish police fired tear gas at women demonstrating in Istanbul against gender-based violence and Turkey's departure from an international treaty protecting women. Protesters urged the government of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to rejoin the landmark Istanbul Convention, an international treaty that came into force in 2014 and laid the way for a Europe-wide legal framework to tackle, prevent and prosecute violence against women. Turkey abandoned the convention after Erdogan signed a decree that took effect in March, sparking condemnation both within and outside the country. Conservatives within the ruling party argued the treaty's principles of gender equality undermine traditional family values and promote homosexuality. A total of 345 women have been killed in Turkey since the start of the year, according to the We Will Stop Femicide platform. We remain on topic. In Mexico, women are fighting for the right to self-defense in a country where gender-based violence and femicides are reported in huge numbers. According to official figures, Mexico registered 736 femicides between January and September this year, not far from the number of the whole of 2020. Mexican women who defend themselves against their aggressors can end up behind bars, while their abusers escape justice. Activists stress that in the country where violence against women is endemic, the right to legitimate self-defense is a must.
What I demand is freedom for my daughter Rosana because she only defended herself from the person who threatened her that he was going to kill her for defending herself and not being able to do what he wanted. What he wanted was to kill her apart from raping her. He had threatened her that he was going to kill her, and what she did was defend herself. Why should a woman who has suffered a crime to prove that she actually suffered a crime? In other words, the public prosecutor's office will have to make use of all the mechanisms to carry out a full and impartial investigation without any gender bias. I think that in these cases of defense, of legitimate self-defense, there are many factors. There is the fact that you have a good defense, but the authorities do their jobs as it should be done. That is, the family believes you, that society supports you, that they look after you, protect you, and that the media really shows what it's like.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen opened a virtual meeting of Asian and European leaders on Thursday with a call for sustainable and shared global growth as the world seeks to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. 30 European countries and 21 Asian countries, along with multinational organizations representing the European Union and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, are represented at the two-day Asia-Europe meeting. The biennial event is being hosted by Cambodia after being postponed from last year due to the pandemic. Membership of the Asia-Europe meeting, or ASEM, accounts for 65% of the global economy, 60% of the world's population, 75% of global tourism, and 55% of global trade.
Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen.
As ASEM is moving towards its next decade of its assistance, we all have a shared responsibilities to ensure that ASEM continue to be an essential and robust inter-regional platform that can bring about great benefit for its people and can make an even greater contribution to peace, stability, prosperity, and development of the world.
Multilateral cooperation and a very strong Europe-Asia relationship in particular is crucial for our global recovery. COVID-19 has impacted every country and region of the world and every aspect of our lives, and it shows how interconnected we are. We believe it's important for all ASEM partners to work together to build back better in a more green, digital, sustainable, and inclusive way.
China's birth rate fell below 1% last year, dropping to its lowest level in 40 years, despite the government's efforts to convince families to grow. We have more details with our correspondent, Iramsi Braza.
Government's policies to stimulate birth continue to fail. Chinese birth rate plummeted last year, falling to its lowest level in more than 40 years, raising alarm among authorities and experts about the danger of demographic crisis. In 2020, the Chinese nation counted with 8.5 births per 1,000 inhabitants, the lowest number since 1978. Demographers attributed the lower numbers to the decline in the number of women of childbearing age, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the well-known issues such as the high cost of living, health, education, and labor demands.
Very difficult for young people. There's too much pressure to have a baby. We have a lot to think about.
I believe the same. It is very complicated. Despite the fact that in 2016 the one-child policy was eliminated and an amendment was passed by China's parliament this year to allow and to encourage couples to have up to 3 offspring, the measures have not had the desired effect, and Beijing faces the risk of an aging population and a decline in the number of workers. With the scenario, in addition to policies to stimulate the birth rate, the Chinese authorities promised to improve and optimize public services related to education and health, pay attention to housing costs and other measures to improve social welfare and ensure the renewal of the labor force, an indispensable condition for the country's development.
Iranzi Peraza, Telesur, Beijing, China.
Thank you, Ramsey, for this report, and now we continue to other topics. Demonstrations continue in Sudan, where thousands of citizens rally in Khartoum and Omdurman against last month's military power grab, rejecting an agreement struck between Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, Sudan's staff general, that saw the Prime Minister Abdel Hamdok reinstated. Sudanese security forces have fired tear gas to the protesters that rallied against the Prime Minister reinstated in the central state of North Kordofan and in North Darfur, as well as Khartoum and Omdurman. Likewise, demonstrators affirmed that the new agreement trunks the possibility of a completely civil government in the country. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan seized power and detained Prime Minister Abdel Hamdok on October 25th. But after international condemnation and mass protest, he reinstated the premier in a deal designed on Sunday. Around 200 people gathered in Calais on Thursday night to pay tribute to at least 27 migrants who died trying to cross the English Channel. Wednesday's capsize was the deadliest to date on the dangerous sea lane that separates France and Britain. The French prosecutor's office, tasked with investigating the sinking, said the dead included 17 men, 7 women, and 2 boys and 1 girl, thought to be teenagers. The crossings have tripled this year compared to 2020.
It's not the first time we have seen this. It's really anger. Sadness is here every day, but this is a lot of anger. It's 27 deaths that could been avoided. As always, a few weeks ago we were meeting here because there were deaths, but nothing changes. It's always the same.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.